He is the one and only, easily one of my favorite people to talk to. KJ No, he's a journalist, political analyst, writer, and teacher specializing in the geopolitics of the Asia Pacific region. He was contributor to the book Capitalism on a Ventilator, once censored by Amazon. It is now available at iacenter.org. KJ, welcome to the show, my man. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be with you.
No, man, it's a pleasure to be with you. You are on the West Coast, so this is more painful for you than it is for me. But I do appreciate you joining me. I really do. Um,
Well,
I,
it's
I,
always a pleasure to be with you.
I got to start at the impeachment. Man, South Korea gets an applause from me like nobody's business. In a sea of bad news, South Korea has been the actual good news item. And so, the just to give a primer, the president comes out one day and calls martial law. I think it's like 10 o'clock at night, out the blue, declares martial law. Effectively, I am a dictator of South Korea now. And he refuses governmental assembly in his decree. Basically, the parliament or the National Assembly can't meet. Protesters can't protest. The media is now under the auspices of the presidency, basically under the auspices of the government. And his excuse for this was, well, North Korean has infiltrated the other party. There was also a conversation that took place recently, or a report, that because they didn't do anything about Chinese spies, that he needed to take action to defend the democracy by destroying the democracy. I mean, just outlandish stuff. So fast forward to the police get involved. Well, for one, the National Assembly meets anyway. They vote down the decree. 4 hours it takes them for him to finally call off his goons who had basically tried to prevent them from voting down his decree, having South Korean public stand there with chairs, cameras, any and everything that they could in order to create a barrier to allow the National Assembly to get its vote in. Just astonishing of the government of the South Koreans to do that. Fast forward, a police investigation is open. The defense minister is detained. The president is not allowed to leave the country, which is, again, a weird spot for a president to be. You get the situation where the defense minister gets arrested. He tries to kill himself with his underwear. He tries to choke himself with his underwear. That didn't work. And the president, there's an impeachment vote. The first impeachment vote doesn't go through because they didn't have quorum. The opposition party walks out, or the party of the president walks out. Second time around, there's such a public backlash at what the president tried to do by all elements of South Korea that the president is impeached. And I just saw that many of the leaders want to step down from the party, and apparently the party's figurehead, or the main leader of the opposition party, or of the president's party, has stepped down. I believe this was yesterday or over the weekend. Did I get that right? I just want to make sure I got this right as a primer for the audience before we move into the other parts of the story.
You're absolutely right. The PPP party, the leadership, the Supreme Council, they've all resigned. And then the leader of the party, Han Dong-hoon, who is actually who used to be very, very close to the president, has also resigned. So the PPP party is in a complete leadership crisis, as is, without exaggeration, South Korea itself.
So is South Korea in a crisis at this point? Because it seems that the entire political space is has organized around this notion that the president was wrong. Like, meaning it's not a situation where there seems to be political disarray. It seems that politically everybody's on the same page. This is outrageous. This is outlandish. This cannot be allowed to happen, even to the point where all of these people effectively resign as part of the president's party. Or am I getting this wrong?
No, you have it right. People have resigned. Yoon's top cabinet has been apprehended or is under suspicion or in the process of being indicted. And so, there's massive churn happening, massive change happening. But there are a couple of ways to understand this. The first impeachment vote didn't work. And, just going back to the original martial law rescission vote. The National Assembly members, they came out, partly in their pajamas. They're running over fences. There was even a visually impaired legislator, a blind legislator, who, rushed out in the middle of the night, and she tried to get past these obstacles. She couldn't because she was blind. But she says that, in my heart, I pressed that yes button a million times, so that shows you how intense people were feeling. There's other images gone viral, a woman legislator, she's fighting with a special warfare officer, tussling with his gun, so this shows you the kind of stakes and the passions that people were feeling, because martial law, I've said this before, is probably the scariest word in the Korean language. It means that ordinary life is over. Everybody has been inducted into the military, and you will do as you are told. That's what martial law means. And the last time it happened, 44 years ago, people fought with their lives, and they certainly don't want that again. So that tells you how extreme this situation was. And then it became very clear that this was not simply martial law, not simply a martial law declaration, but that it was not only unconstitutional, but that it was an act of rebellion, that it was an act of sedition. This was in the Koreans, they call it neran, which means insurrection. Essentially, he is essentially there. He is in the process of being charged with insurrection, he and his lieutenants. And so under those circumstances, there was the first impeachment vote, which the PPP ruling party, his party, walked out of. And that is, that is a kind of an insult to the entire population. The second impeachment vote was successful. 12 people of the PPP party crossed barriers in favor of the impeachment, although the PPP party came out officially and said that we oppose the impeachment. And so now it goes to the Constitutional Court. Jamal, I think your mic is muted.
Oh, I was
Yes.
letting you. Yeah, I was
So
muted
now-
while you talk. I didn't want any of the background. Oh, they're knocking at the downstairs somewhere. I'm sorry. I didn't want it to bleed through.
Got it. Sorry. Yeah.
So
After the impeachment, impeachment takes it to the Constitutional Court. Now, the Constitutional Court has 180 days, and the clock has already started to either accept the impeachment or to reject it. Now, currently there are 6 seated justices on the Constitutional Court, which has 9 seats. So there's only 6 out of 9 currently seated. They technically do not have a quorum, but they've decided to take the case on anyway. Now, in order for the impeachment to be sustained, you need 6 out of 9 justices to agree to the impeachment, to accept the impeachment. And
so they would need all 6.
They have to get all 6. And they've just appointed the lead justice of the Constitutional Court. And he was appointed by President Yoon Suk-yeol. And to all extent, he is probably a diehard Yoon Suk-yeol, loyalist. And so there is, there's some, it's going to be an uphill battle. Now, to complicate that, there are 3 investigative agencies that are currently investigating the president. That's the CIO, it's like the Inspector General. There's the Prosecutor's Office, and then which is like the Attorney General, and then there's the police. Now, all 3 institutions are currently investigating the police, investigating Yoon Suk-yeol, and they're having a bit of a turf battle going on. And Yoon Suk-yeol has prevented the search of his premises. A warrant for search and seizure was issued many days ago. Yoon Suk-yeol used his security team to prevent any entry, tossed them a few scraps of paper and rejected the search warrant. And now there have been multiple summons that have been sent to Yoon Suk-yeol that he has to appear as a, as a witness in this case, or he has to testify in this case where he's the accused, and he has rejected them outright. He hasn't responded to the summons. So currently, what it looks like is he's rejecting everything. He's going to slow walk everything. There are probably a whole bunch of procedural games that he's going to play. Remember, he was the prosecutor who impeached 2 presidents before him, so he knows this game. It's not the first time. This is not his first rodeo. He's done this before, so he's probably going to slow walk the process. And my concern is that if he slow walks it enough, there'll be other forces and other disruptions and possibly dirty tricks that could happen that could derail the process. And ultimately, what it all boils down to, the fact is that Yoon Suk-yeol is Washington's man. The U.S. does not want to see him gone. And when he started this coup, when he initiated this coup, you have to ask yourself, why did he think he could get away with such a brazen action?
Right.
And if you look back on history, there's a historical answer. We don't know if this is the case here, or at least it's not confirmed. But the historical answer is that every coup leader in South Korean history has had the backing of the United States. And so the question is this the case here? I think that you could make the case, and people like Colonel Douglas Macgregor have, argued that.
Look, it wouldn't shock me in the least, considering, look, I still think Trump is related to this. And the reason, I've said it before, Trump, in the last time around, he got so much criticism for willing to make the deal with North Korea. And the deal that he made wasn't shocking. He stopped doing the simulated attacks on North Korea. And the US media flipped out. Oh my God, I can't believe you're stopped doing simulated attacks against North Korea. It's like, what do you mean you can't believe I'm not doing? Like, it's just bizarre the way that this country's orthodoxy works in regards to war and peace. It's flipped on its head. War is kind of the norm. And anybody who's coming in saying, okay, well, I don't want to have wars in this case, those people are bucking the orthodoxy. So I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if this is one of those ways of trying to basically instill what they consider to be gains being that particular person or that leader not believing that South Korea as a democracy would be as obsequious as they would be under a dictatorship. But putting that to the side for the moment, quorum, who makes the decision on whether or not quorum will be accepted or not accepted on the courts?
The Chief Justice does. So the Chief Justice,
they can do it on their own.
The Chief Justice made that decision because traditionally 7 justices is the quorum. You need 7 out of 9 justices seated in order to examine a case. But there was a case just before that where they accepted to do a case with only 6 because there is a turf fight over appointments right now. And that's a whole nother, kind of story there. But because of this turf fight over the 3 empty positions, they decided to accept to see a case, a different case with only 6 justices. And having set that precedent, they decided, okay, then we can go ahead and see the presidential, impeachment case with only 6 justices. But it's tricky, right? Because it requires every single justice to agree in order for the impeachment to be sustained. As I said, there are already Yoon Suk-yeol loyalists on the bench who have been appointed by him. And then, you see, on one level, this case is an open and shut case. Mm-hmm. It is clearly impeachable because the president is caught on camera declaring martial law without any justification. We have images of police and special warfare troops smashing into the National Assembly. We have, reports that, National Assembly members, the order was given to pull National Assembly members out of chambers to prevent them from voting. All of these are extra constitutional, violations, so this is an open and shut case. The question is, why hasn't Yoon already been apprehended and arrested? And why would this take, 180 days to resolve, which is technically the amount of time? So
So
on
maybe
one level, it's really, really simple. It's really simple that we have all the evidence we need. But right now, there's a turf battle among 3 different agencies. They say they're looking for evidence. Evidence doesn't seem to be produced. All these agencies have conflicts of interest because there are many loyalists inside these agencies. So there's actually room for, obfuscating the investigation. And then there's an entire timeline issue which comes into play, which is that the Constitutional Court has 180 days to render a decision, but at the same time, the main opposition party leader is also facing a bunch of charges as well that could take him out of running if there were a snap election to be held. So there are all kinds of games being played right here.
So in the United States, the president has certain powers against, let's say, prosecution. And the Supreme Court eventually just made the president pretty much king here in the States. How does it work in South Korea? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is, right? How does it work in South Korea? Does the president have powers against, meaning, does the president have to be impeached and removed from office before he can be prosecuted? Or can the president be prosecuted in office? Meaning, could the organization similar to the FBI go after the president in South Korea? Or could the prosecutor's office go after the president in South Korea? Or do they have to wait for the judge or for the bench to get him out of office before he's fair game? How does it work there?
So technically, the president has immunity against all crimes or all indictments, except for insurrection. And that is what he has been charged with. Okay, you cannot get away with treason. And so he's currently being charged with treason in the Constitutional Court, and separately criminally, he has been charged with treason. So his immunity does not apply. And then also the fact that he's been impeached also makes it much easier for proceedings to move forward against him. But as I said, there are currently 3 investigative agencies with different agendas that seem to be conflicting or having turf battles, and that is also part of the problem. And then Yoon can also slow walk the entire process through the Constitutional Court because time is on his side.
But I don't get that one. If insurrection is one of the items that the president doesn't necessarily have immunity for, then why do they have to wait for the Constitutional Court to make a ruling? It seems that the police could investigate and go, like the idea, I'll give you an example. Well, Mayor Adams is mayor of New York. And I know it's not the exact same thing, a mayor and the president. But when the feds came to get his cell phones and everything else, Adams had no choice but to give up those cell phones. And I guess my thing is that the same thing would be true if they did that for any political official. It would be hard pressed for them to say, well, no, I'm not giving you my information, or no, I'm not letting you into my house. It would be outrageous for anybody to try to do something like that in the middle of an investigation. And that person probably would get shot, frankly, if they tried to stop them and they had a court order allowing them to do so. How is so he's using his own security personnel in order to prevent the police department from doing their job? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct, yes. So he's using the presidential security detail. It's like the Secret Service. And they're like a little mini army. And they're telling the police, you have no right to investigate. They're simply creating, they're simply, cordoning off the presidential residence and saying you cannot enter. We're not going to give you any evidence except what we want to. And they toss them a few bones. But So it really is, there's a kind of, turf battle going on. And then regarding the investigations, there are two parallel investigations. One is the impeachment investigation, or the
Right.
process for impeachment, and then there's also the criminal investigation, which is for insurrection. So these are actually proceeding on separate tracks. The fact is, Jamal, there is enough evidence at this point to arrest the president. I mean, like I said, he's caught on camera declaring martial law. It's not like there's some secret document that they have to ferret out that shows that he, did it. He's on camera doing it. So there's all the evidence they need. But because of these turf battles, and because this is not simply a legal case, but also a political case with tremendous geopolitical ramifications, I think there's a little bit of, people are treading carefully, and also there's some, internal conflicts that are happening. So we have to watch this very carefully.
I'm curious, KJ. What else have they learned up to this point? They've had to. I mean, for them to press charges against the defense minister, what former defense minister, and for them to actually agree to impeachment, meaning the first time around, his own political party didn't want to participate. This time around, there had to have been enough pressure on those people for them to say, "Okay, fair enough." What do you think it was that changed their minds, that brought them over and said, "Okay, he is so unbelievably guilty that even us who are part of his own party can't necessarily abide by what he was trying to do"? What was it? Meaning, was there any releases that were like the bombshell thing that says, "Okay, fair enough, he's guilty"? What was the thing that did it?
Between the first impeachment attempt and the second successful impeachment attempt, we saw a lot of disclosures through a National Assembly hearing, which showed that there had been attempts to kidnap National Assembly leaders. That seems to have come out in very, very clear detail. And then there was also a media person called Kim Oh-jun, and he said that these were not simply kidnapping squads. It wasn't simply kidnapping squads that had been deployed, but assassination squads had been deployed. And according to him, their mission was to kill Kim Oh-jun and Han Dong-un, the leader of the PPP, who would have been snatched and kidnapped. So kill the leader of the PPP, make it look like they were trying to make it look like that these were North Korean agents that had killed Han Dong-un, and that were trying to rescue the opposition leaders who he has accused of being North Korean, followers, and then dig up North Korean uniforms and then blame it all on North Korea. So that was one set of disclosures that came out.
KJ, that's outrageous. That's outrageous. That is mind blowing. He was trying to start a war.
He was trying, and that was the other piece that also came out, that the defense minister Kim Yong-hyun had sent drones into North Korea, and had also given orders to fire on North Korea in response to trash balloons, etc. And so it looks like there may have been this deliberate attempt to trigger a war with North Korea. And the only reason why South Korea is not simply under martial law, but in a sea of flames right now, seems to be the fact that, Kim Jong-un, was really, really chill and didn't respond to these intense provocations. So, if you watch this, it just gets more and more, absurd. It, makes your average, K-drama, K-thriller, K-horror show look like, some kind of, cheap, imitation. But, there's some incredible things were going on. So possibly an attempt to trigger a war, possibly an attempt to assassinate and blame it on North Korea, and then most certainly, clearly, attempts to overthrow the constitutional order.
That is outrageous. I don't even know what to say about that. That is outrageous. I mean, that is so over the top. Like, that is just mind blowing. I mean, to be honest, all of this was rather ostentatious. I mean, the idea that you're going to come out and say this is now a dictatorship is, like you said, it's all on TV. It's not like he, was rehearsing it behind the scenes and they caught him. He came out and implemented martial law. And then, do you think he didn't expect, and this could be the last question, he didn't expect that level of pushback? Because that is pretty ballsy to just, at 10 o'clock at night, by the way, this is now a dictatorship, just so you all know. And to go down your, edict 1, edict 2, edict 3, and have the full expectation that the military is going to back you in doing so. What did he expect the public to do in that? Did he just think that the public was going to say, okay, well, it's a dictatorship, we'll call it a day? Like, he didn't expect that level of resistance to him doing that. I'm just curious on what did he think was going to happen?
Nobody knows exactly what went through his head, but what we do know is that this was not an impulsive act. What we do know is that this was planned possibly for at least 18 months before. Okay, apparently deliberations started July of 2023. And I think you could even make an argument that these were plans that were hatched right at the beginning of his presidency, when he moved the presidential house into the Ministry of Defense building, which is right next to the bunker that would oversee martial law. So there may have been some long-term planning here, but what made him think he could get away with such brazen actions, right? I mean, once again, I have to say that put yourself in Yoon Suk-yeol's shoes. He's going to ask himself, look, I'm having, political deadlock in the legislature. I can't get my agenda approved. They shaved 0.6% of the budget. This makes me crazy. They're trying to impeach me. They're trying to prosecute my wife. I will declare martial law. Once he's made that decision, what is his internal process? He's going to say, well, can I do this? Do I have the personnel? Do I have the loyalty? Do I have the capability? This was planned for 18 months, so they probably checked all the boxes. And there was probably one other question, which is, what do we tell the godfather? There's a godfather who oversees all of this. What do we tell them? When do we tell them? How much do we tell them? The fact is, they probably would have had to signal something to the United States. Otherwise, they would not have gone ahead with it. Because, to be honest, South Korea is a U.S. vassal. Its military is under U.S. control. Its politics, is tightly reined in, especially the politics of the PPP party, the ruling party, are tightly reined in with the United States and literally coordinated with U.S. geopolitical strategy. So if you think of all that, then probably his calculation may have been, and here I'm hypothesizing, he's saying, well, I have the capacity, I can get away with it. I have, the material military force to do this. And most importantly, the godfather has nodded, okay? And therefore, we will simply ignore the pushback because that's what we have done up to this point. Because Yoon was already going down that road already. He was smashing unions. He was smashing media companies. He raided the opposition party leader, his house. He SWAT raided him 400 times. And he was just grinding the people underfoot. Yes, 400 times. And so
that can't be right. Wait. He sent the cops to the leader of the opposition's house 400 times?
400 times, yes, and raided it, tore the place upside down. Okay, so this was the kind of stuff that he was getting away with. He was trampling people, opposition, media, unions, civil society underfoot And as he was doing that, all he was doing, all he was getting was receiving praise from the Western media and from Washington. They were saying he was the leader of a pivot state that was advancing democracy in the world. They held the summit of democracies in Korea, even as he was grinding people down. So you send all of that messaging, all of those strokes, you give him all of those strokes. Is it a surprise that somewhere in his mind he thinks, well, Washington says I'm doing the right thing, I can get away with this? And the proof of the pudding of that hypothesis is that when he declared the coup, what was Washington's response?
Silence.
Silence. We're watching. We're watching this. It's not like a coup is illegal. This is anti-democratic. Their response is, we're watching this carefully. And our relationship with South Korea is ironclad. And they've repeated this over and over and over again. Our support for Korea is ironclad, meaning, we support you, or at the very least, we don't criticize you. And
Whatever
of course,
happens, happens.
Whatever
Whatever
happens,
happens.
Ki
Wow.
sera sera, right?
Wow. KJ, man, fantastic breakdown. Thank you for this. KJ, no, he's a journalist, journalist, political analyst, writer, and teacher specializing in the geopolitics of the Asia Pacific region. He's contributor to a book, Capitalism on a Ventilator, once censored by Amazon. It is now available at iacenter.org. KJ, man, thank you for this great breakdown. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.